So with episode 4 of this series, I have to say, a lot of the answers that get revealed in this week's episode is stuff that was foreshadowed in previous weeks, and even I saw some people in different discussion forums pretty much predict things like with the handler getting smaller, appearing to be weaker. But it's nice to see how everything was revealed, but still bring up more questions, but it doesn't feel like it's an unbalanced situation here. I really enjoyed the pacing and structure to this series. And first things first, let's talk about the handler, because the first time we saw the handler, it was a giant mammoth of a beast, and slowly we've been seeing the handler get smaller and smaller, and in this week's episode, we see the handler die. And in like an almost religion-like sense, it's like, well, there's only one handler, there's only one herald, but of course we know in this world there's probably going to be multitude of just different handlers sprinkled throughout, so any of the stalled can't be harmed. But I really enjoy the fact that we get to see exactly that even though these giant creatures are insanely powerful, they're not indestructible. And it seems like every time they save a person or every time they kill someone, they get smaller, they get weaker, but it's a matter of how long, because the one that we saw seems to be a pretty old person, so maybe it's just like, okay, does the age of the person who turns into a handler have to do with how long they can save people? Or is it a matter of they can only protect so many people before their bodies will give away and just completely decay? And that's a big question we have, because I think it's very safe to say this wasn't the one and only handler in the show. I'm sure there is plenty of handlers, and one of the antagonists seems to know someone who turned into a handler, so it's a matter of, they could go the route of like each stalled world there is only one handler, or every stalled world there is a set amount. But nonetheless, it's very interesting how they're handling this concept of pretty much the police force in this frozen world, and how it has still so much information revealed, but still so many questions, because we know the ins and outs of how they're working, but we still don't know everything, and that makes me very excited for episodes going forward, because we still don't know everything, but it feels like we've learned so much, and that's how you know you have a proper series, because so many anime wait to explain stuff like this at the episode 9 mark, and you're thinking to yourself, this should have been revealed in the early episodes. So I really appreciate how this series is going the route of actually showing us the information at the appropriate time, and not just beating around the bush with pointless just filler and fan service and every other thing like that. This was a very enjoyable episode because I really enjoyed the fact that the episode's theme was almost power and what power can do to a person, because we have Juri who has the ability to extract the jellyfish from people and throw them out of the basically free-moving people and put them into a stalled. And I think it's very interesting how just menacing she can be, but it almost feels like we're setting up Juri to become a handler in a lot of ways, because this ability seems just insane, almost to the same level as someone like the handlers themselves. So I'm curious if she uses this ability too much, if she could possibly turn into one of these creatures, which I feel like is a route they're building up to, but really only time will tell in that sense. But I enjoy the fact that there's a conversation between her and her grandpa, and essentially she's asking him, why didn't you just throw away the stone? And I love his response, because it's the response most people would give, because it's easy to say on the sidelines, you have this insane power, of course people are going to come after you, why did you keep this around that's so irresponsible? But could anyone really throw away an item of that worth? It's 1 in a million. Actually, it's literally its own thing. There's no even ratio you can give it. It's the ability that can change anyone's lives forever, for better or worse. No one's going to toss that away, and if they do toss it away, they're going to be coming back late at night to pick it back up. And I love his response, because even though it appears that he's a good guy, power does change a person. We're even seeing that with Juri herself. She's not acting like the girl we saw in the early episodes. Of course, she is kicking ass and taking names, but I do feel like this power may start changing her for the worse, but really only time will tell in that sense. But I do like the fact that they had a conversation like, okay, let's just jump out of this, go back into a different stalled world, and save our family members. But then, of course, they realize that their family is now all awoken, so if they leave, they would be lost forever, which is just the perfect way to keep everyone in the same world without it having a plot hole. On top, I just love how detailed this world is, like, just how frozen the world is. It actually visually looks it, like you'll see ripples in the water that are frozen in place. The fact that when they drink water, it's not like they can just drink it and it's fine. No, they actually have to squeeze it out because it's frozen. Like, just the physics in this world are just phenomenal. I love how they can just throw the rock in the air and it'll just stay there. There's just so many little details in this world that just sell the illusion of this actually being a frozen world with so many rules and ins and outs, but it doesn't feel overly complicated, but it has enough detail to really sell this as you believe in this world, and just the overall characters and the way they're acting, it definitely feels believable. And even there are some people who, you know, some of the bad guys in the show, like, they're flirtatious and just very perverted, and some of them are trying to take a peek at other women when they're frozen, and that is how some people would actually deal with this ability. So even though it is just kind of there as just the typical fan service in a way, I do feel like it actually does serve a little bit of a purpose, just because it actually, people would do that. Like, there's plenty of people who naturally would act perverted in that way, but luckily they don't make that the focus, and it's just a little thing to show just how bad some of these people truly are. And this is just a great episode again. Like, I don't think it's my favorite episode of the 4, it might be one of like the bottom 2 for me, but I enjoyed how it functioned. I enjoyed the reveals, learning more about the handlers, also seeing Juri's ability, and just also the backstory that she did come into this world before when her dog died, and then essentially her ability got awoken there. I thought this was an ability that just got awoken this time around, but it seems like she's always had this ability, and that's why it really makes me feel like she has the potential to become a handler, and I'm really interested to see the route they're gonna go. But I definitely feel like someone's turning into a handler before this series wraps up, and I'm very excited to see the route they ultimately take it with. That opening and ending song still very enjoyable, just lyrically, I just enjoy listening to them, and it's the only openings and endings I listen to throughout this season. I skip everything else, but I enjoy the openings and endings so much for this wonderful, wonderful series. But let me know your thoughts. What did you think of this episode with all the reveals, all the new information that has been dropped, and who do you think could become a handler if they do go the route of making someone like one of the main characters a handler? Do you think it's going to be Juri? Do you think it's going to be someone else? Or do you think no one's going to turn into a handler, but we're definitely going to see more as the show goes forward? Let me know your thoughts and ideas down in that comment section below, and before I leave, smack that like button, share your support. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.